Good morning. We're back with our 5th episode of The One and Only Ivan. Thanks for joining me. This chapter is called Lucky. I've heard the Jumbo story many times. Stella says that humans found it odd that the huge silverback didn't kill the boy. Why, I wonder, is that so surprising? The boy was young, scared, and alone. He was, after all, just another great ape. Bob nudges me with his cold nose. Ivan, he says, why aren't you and Stella in a zoo? I looked at Stella. She looked at me. She smiled sadly with her eyes, just a little, the way that only elephants can do. Can you smile sadly with your eyes? I think I've seen that before. Just lucky, I guess, she says. Wonder why she thinks it's lucky not to be in a zoo. This chapter is called Arrival. The new neighbor arrives after the 4 o'clock show. When the truck comes lumbering toward the parking lot, Bob scampers over to inform us. Bob always knows what's happening. He's a useful friend to have, especially when you can't leave your domain. With a groan, Mac lifts the sliding metal door near the food court, the place where the deliveries are made. A big white truck is backing up to the door, belching smoke. When the driver opens the truck, I know Stella is right. A baby elephant is inside. I see her trunk poking out from the blackness. I'm glad for Stella, but when I glance at her, I see she is not glad at all. Stand back, everyone, Mac yells. We've got a new arrival. This is Ruby, folks. 600 pounds of fun to save our sorry selves. This gal is gonna sell some tickets. Mac and his 2 men climb into the black cave of the truck. We hear noise, scuffling, a word Mac uses when he's angry. Ruby makes a noise too, like one of those little trumpets they sell in the gift store. So her noise is like a trumpet. That's another simile. Move, Mac says, but still there is no Ruby. Move, he says again. We haven't got all day. Inside her domain, Stella paces as much as she is able. 2 steps one way, 2 steps another. She slaps her trunk against the rusty metal bars. She grumbles. So what Katherine Applegate, the author, is doing in that paragraph is really a good example of what Miss Daniels and I have taught about what it means to show your reader instead of tell your reader how your characters are feeling. Let me read that paragraph again. Inside her domain, Stella paces as much as she is able, 2 steps one way, 2 steps the other. She slaps her trunk against rusty metal bars. She grumbles. It really doesn't leave any doubt how she's feeling. She's feeling very upset. Stella, I ask, did you hear the baby? Stella mutters something under her breath, a word she uses when she's angry. So first, Katherine Applegate showed us how she felt, and then she told us that she was angry. But besides that, I want to talk about this idea. Now we know how big Stella's domain is. Stella's domain is taking 2 steps one way and 2 steps the other way. Is that a big enough domain for an elephant? Yeah. Sad, isn't it? Relax, Stella, I say. It'll be okay. Ivan, Stella says, it will never, ever be okay. I know enough to stop talking. This chapter's called Stella Helps. The men are still yelling. Some of the yelling is at each other, but mostly it's at Ruby. We hear her scrambling, pounding, shifting. The side of the truck shudders. I'm starting to like this elephant, Bob whispers. I'm getting the big one, Mac says. Maybe she can coax this stupid brat out of the truck. They called Ruby a stupid brat. Mac opens Stella's door. Come on, girl, he urges. He unties the rope attached to the floor bolt. Stella pushes past Mac, nearly knocking him over. She rushes as best she can, limping heavily toward the open back of the truck. She catches her swollen foot on the edge of the ramp and winces. A wince means to go like this. You know how when you get hurt, you might make that expression? That's wincing. Blood trickles down. Halfway up the ramp, she pauses. The noise in the truck stops. Ruby falls silent. Slowly, Stella makes her way up the rest of the ramp. It groans under her weight, and I can tell how much she's hurting by the awkward way she moves. At the top of the incline, she stops. She pokes her trunk into the emptiness. We wait. The tiny gray trunk appears again. Shyly, it reaches out, tasting the air. Stella curls her own trunk around the baby's. They make soft, rumbling sounds. We wait some more. A hush falls over the entire Big Top Mall. Thud, thud, step, step, pause, step, step, pause. And there she is, so small she can fit underneath Stella with room to spare. Her skin sags, and she sways unsteadily as she makes her way down the ramp. Not the greatest specimen, Mac says, but I got her cheap from this bankrupt circus out west. Bankrupt means that the circus went out of business. They had shipped her over here from Africa, only had her a month before they went bust. He gestures towards Ruby. Thing is, people love babies. Baby elephants, baby gorillas, heck, give me a baby alligator and I could probably make a killing. Making a killing means making a lot of money. Stella ushers Ruby toward her domain. Mac and the two men follow. At Stella's door, Ruby hesitates. Mac gives Ruby a shove, but she doesn't budge. Doggone it, get a clue, Ruby, he mutters, but Ruby isn't moving, and neither is Stella. Mac grabs a broom. He raises it. Instantly, Stella steps in front of Ruby to shield her. Get in that cage, both of you, Mac shouts. Stella stares at Mac, considering, gently but firmly. Using her trunk, she nudges Ruby into her domain. Only then does Stella enter. Mac slams the door shut with a clang. I see the two trunks entwined. That means wrapped together. I hear Stella whispering. Poor kid, says Bob. Welcome to the Exodate Big Top Mall and Video Arcade, home of the one and only Ivan. This chapter's called Old News. When Julia comes, she sits by Stella's domain and watches the new baby. She barely talks to me. Stella doesn't talk to me either. She's too busy nuzzling Ruby. She is cute, little Ruby, with her ears flapping like palm leaves. But I'm handsome and strong. Bob trots in a circle around my belly before settling down in the just right spot. Give it up, Ivan, he says. You're old news. What do you think Bob means by that? Julia gets out a piece of paper and a pencil, and I can see that she's drawing Ruby. I move to the corner of my domain to pout. Bob grumbles. He doesn't like it when I disrupt his naps. Homework, Julia's father scolds. Julia sighs and puts her drawing aside. I grunt, and Julia glances in my direction. Poor old Ivan, she said. I've been ignoring you, haven't I? I grunt again. A dignified, indifferent grunt. Indifferent means you don't care one way or the other. But I think that he does care. He's just pretending not to care and be jealous of the attention that Julia is paying to to Ruby. Julia thinks for a moment, then smiles. She walks over to my domain, to the spot in the corner where the glass is broken. She slides papers through. She rolls a pencil across my cement floor. You can draw the baby elephant too, Julia says. I bite the pencil in half with my magnificent teeth. Then I eat some paper. This chapter is called Tricks. Even after Julia and her father leave, I try to keep sulking, but it's no use. Gorillas are not by nature pouters. Stella, I call. It's a full moon, did you see? Sometimes when we're lucky, we catch a glimpse of the moon through the skylight in the food court. I did, Stella says. She's whispering, and I realize that, does this ever happen to you when you're reading along and then the author gives you a hint about how the character said that phrase or sentence, and then you feel like, I gotta go back. So I'm gonna go back. I did, Stella says. She's whispering, and I realize that Ruby must be asleep. Is it okay to go back and revise our reading? Absolutely, friends. Is Ruby all right? I ask. She's too thin, Ivan, Stella says. Poor baby, she was in that truck for days. Mac bought her from a circus the same way he bought me, but she hadn't been there long. She was born in the wild, like us. Will she be okay? I ask. Stella doesn't answer my question. The circus trainers chained her to the floor, Ivan, all 4 feet, 23 hours a day. Take that in. Let's have a moment to try to empathize with this character. Can you imagine being a baby and being chained for 23 hours a day? I pause over why this would be a good idea. I always try to give humans the benefit of the doubt. Why would they do that? I finally ask. To break her spirit, Stella says, so she could learn to balance on a pedestal, so she could stand on her hind legs, so a dog could jump on her back while she walked in mindless circles. And all of that is for people's entertainment, yeah? Makes me wonder why, as people, we think that's entertaining, or why we don't consider what happens to the animals behind the scenes. I hear her voice, I hear her tired voice, and I think of all the tricks Stella has learned. All right, friends, that brings us to page 79. We started off at 67, and we went to 79. All right, friends, thank you for listening, being great listeners. This was a hard chapter to read emotionally, so maybe you have something to add in your response journal about that, or maybe you just want to take it in and think. I'll see you next time.